Restaurant Next. I am your host, Angela Diffley, the co-founder of RTN, and I am so excited about this next panel. This is the only supplier panel you'll see at the event, and these folks deserve to be here. These four panelists that I have today that I'm speaking with have been hard at work for a year plus on an initiative that the Restaurant Technology Network has been supporting called the Open API Framework Initiative. And it's hugely exciting for the industry. I would venture to say it's the biggest thing we have ever done at RTN and will probably ever do for the industry. So kudos to this group for dedicating their time and technology talent to the mission. And without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to our esteemed panelists. We have Robert Peterson, who is the Vice President of Sales at Q. Hi, Robert.
Hello there.
Thanks for joining us. We have Bob Gibson, who's the Chief Revenue Officer at Jolt. Hi, Bob.
Hey, guys.
Good to see you. We have Chris Leiber, who is the Chief Strategy Officer and Chief Marketing Officer at Revel. Hi, Chris.
Hey, everybody.
And finally, we have Brian Whitney, who is the Vice President of Sales for Appetize. Hi, Brian.
Hello, how's everybody doing?
Great. So thank you all for joining us. I'm going to just go around as a roundtable and just have you explain a little bit about your role at your company, what you do, and maybe what you've been doing with the RTN with this initiative in particular. Let's start with you, Robert.
So at Q, I am obviously Vice President of Sales, but I'm part of the executive team, so I help lead strategy for the company as well as for our products. And we got into RTN right at the beginning when it was launched at Mertech, and the Open API was something. I am kind of a data freak or a data geek, so I jumped right in and first was taking kind of a backseat position. I do like to talk a lot, and I guess I have a lot to add because somehow or another I got pulled forward and been in a leadership role ever since, and really excited to get this first initiative over the line.
Yep, great. And let's move to you, Chris. I know that you are also on the Vendor Advisory Council of the RTN, so tell us a little bit about kind of your involvement and what you think about this initiative.
Yeah, well, listen, at the end of the day, technology is more important than ever in this industry, and interoperability is critical because no one vendor can be all things to all people. And so I've been passionate about that really my whole career. And I think, you know, this is an industry that has not done as well historically as it could on this topic. And we all could be moving a lot faster and providing a lot more value to our customers, you know, if we had some API standards. So that and several other concepts of RTN, I think, are spot on. And so we wanted to jump in and support it as early as possible.
Fantastic, and we appreciate the support. And how about you, Bob? Tell us about your involvement. I know that you came from a small little company called Oracle.
Yeah.
Before you landed at Jolt. So tell us what it's been like and kind of what your involvement's been. You were with us with RTN at Oracle, and now you're with us with RTN at Jolt. So
yeah, my second stint with RTN. Excited to be part of the group. We were a founding partner back with Oracle, and it was really exciting work that we were doing back then. And now with Jolt, I'm the Chief Revenue Officer, and kind of like Robert, I'm involved with strategy in every aspect of the operation. And I couldn't agree any more with Chris. The industry, one of the things that's been frustrating being a 30-year vet on the IT side is just the lack of standardization. So every time you have to create an interface, it's a one-off. Standards and making life easier for the restaurateur to be able to actually take advantage of new technology is a passion of mine. And with the help of the folks on the team, we've just done some really, I think, great stuff with the API team.
Yeah, great. Thanks. Thanks, Bob. And how about you, Brian? Tell us about your journey to the RTN through Appetize.
So like some of the other folks here, I've had a long journey with point of sale and hospitality technology. And you know, as we've gone through, I've seen multiple times where organizations and restaurants and operators needed to change, and that was stymied by a partner or an integration or a time it took. And getting an open API and getting to a set of standards, as the others have talked to, will enable that change. If there's one thing we've seen over the last 9 months of this new COVID era, is that change is happening even faster than ever. We saw a 40% increase in contactless payments immediately. So those kind of things that have been sitting out there on the sidelines are now kind of, you have to have them, they're table stakes. So to be able to drive this and new integrations for whatever comes next, to be able to have this foundational piece will enable us as an industry to respond better to our consumers as whatever the next change is.
Yeah, yeah, I think that that is spot on. And so Robert, tell us a little bit about what the experience has been for you, like in the work group itself. I mean, a lot of people listening have never attended one of these RTN work groups. They don't really know what it is. Obviously, we call it a think tank style technology talent where we bring technology talent to the table, both restaurants and suppliers. So tell us a little bit how that's been for you, just as an experience, and in particular, just the API experience.
So there's a couple, two things that really stick out. One was working side by side with competitors, which I think is fairly new, at least for myself. I would assume for the rest of us on the team, and also in the same format with all the brand partners. So you know, for instance, Brian and I, when we did the off-prem playbook, you know, we worked together to build a presentation to present it to the restaurants. And I don't think ever in my career I have like got on a Zoom call with my competitor and said, okay, we're going to put this presentation together. And it was like working next to one of my colleagues, just happened to be a competitor. So that whole spirit of doing anything we could during COVID to help, it came to life, and there was no boundaries, which is great. And that is part of the process, is that we have this work group, this forum that everyone comes together, whether they're a solution provider or a brand partner. Ideas are shared. We get into the nitty gritty. Sometimes, you know, we get to a point where we think, okay, I think we're okay. We got it now. And then someone raises their hand and says, well, we might have forgot this piece. And we go down a rabbit hole that's either good or bad, but we explore every option, and everyone has a voice. And there were times we were close to completion, and we brought up some new parts of the API standard around the menu synchronization, and there's some further work to do as well. So those pieces I like, as there is so much different viewpoints, and then you throw the technology on top of it, and you throw competitors working together on top of it. We're truly building a standard. I won't name the person, but I at one time heard a very astute POS thought leader say, the good thing about standards is that everyone has their own. And I want to crush that. And I want to say, we now have a standard. We're going to be like our adjacent industries in grocery and retail, and we're going to do this, and we're going to make it happen.
That's phenomenal and very encouraging, I'm sure, for all the restaurants listening here today. And Chris, what would you say about the competitive nature of working with folks in these work groups? I mean, a lot of people, frankly, that's one of the questions they ask when they're looking to join RTN. They say, well, how does that work when you have competitors on the line and all battling for airtime with the restaurants, or however they have it in their minds, but certainly not that way. So tell us what your opinion of experience of the work group is.
Yeah, you know, first of all, I've seen very little issue with any of that. It would be a logical concern, but maybe it's because you got to opt in, and those that don't want to cooperate with their competitors are not at the table. That could be part of it. But I think more importantly, you know, the people that are in this see the value, they're committed to it, and there really hasn't been a lot of sticking points, you know, in terms of people unwilling to work with each other. And I also have it, we all realize that having contact with brands may be a good thing for relationships or future sales, but nobody's running around waving their flag and trying to, you know, sell in these meetings or anything. This to me this is not some rocket science. Should we be doing this? This is an obvious thing to be doing. And, you know, I think it's a very practical effort that just needed some coordination, and thanks to you and the organization, you're providing that. And the level of cooperation and the professionalism is very high.
Well, yeah, that's thanks to all of you who participate as well, because I think that, you know, we were without, you know, obviously we had to have the structure in place, but without the participants, we would be nowhere. So Bob, tell me a little bit about how you have time to participate, because honestly, you guys are like top in your company. So the fact that you donate your time and talent to this mission, it must be pretty important to you.
Yeah, it definitely is. And I think I speak for the group when I say we just tack on another 2-3 hours a day. So, but yeah, it definitely is. And I think, you know, to take what Robert said and Chris and add some context to it, this benefits us all. So I think, you know, the cooperation you see within the groups is, you know, I know myself being 30 years in the industry, these are problems I wanted to solve for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And it really prohibits us, not that I'm a POS vendor anymore, but when I was, it prohibits us from really delivering the value to our customers that we've always wanted to. And this group, and I think what we're putting together, it's just been amazing. I mean, the attention to detail and the different perspective between the restaurateur, a POS vendor, an online ordering vendor, you know, when we're looking at APIs, it's just been amazing. And I think that you'll see that in the product that, that we deliver.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that diversity is important to have when you're putting something together as important as an API framework. And Brian, tell us a little bit about what you think this framework is going to do, maybe for Appetize, like your company, and just for the industry in general. I mean, you guys are obviously on board with this, all of you, like full force.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, look, I think to echo what Chris and everybody's really saying is this is just common sense. This enables us to go compete where we need to compete best on the service and the product that we provide to the marketplace, and get out of the middle of which widget works with that widget. You know, I tell a story all the time of a very large, it was at the time, it was the fastest growing fast casual brand that was blocked from integrating digital menu boards by their POS provider. Not for any logical reason, but just because they just decided not to integrate with anybody else. And this is the simplest integration. The downstream effect of that was a lack of satisfaction in the POS, not a lack of attachment. And it caused a lot of pain for the store operators. I think, you know, I know personally, I've been very engaged on making sure that from the cashier all the way through to the manager to the home office, that we're improving their lives. And this is just the perfect way to be able to do that, to enable a restaurateur to be able to go to a trade show or go to an event or hear about a new technology and not have to figure out, well, how do I make this work in my business, to know if they're a member of the open API, that they can take it and they can plug it in, and they can see that value. And then I, as a POS operator, can go talk and understand what I can do to deliver, and knowing as a part of an API that I can fit into the solution stack that they've opted into. So it helps us, it unlocks a marketplace, it makes a frictionless environment to deliver frictionless experiences for the employees and the guests.
Yeah, anyone want to add on to that? Because that's a big deal.
Yeah, I throw on, just to add to that, Brian, I know one of the things that used to frustrate me a lot being in the business was, you know, you'd be told that, yeah, we interface, so we have an API for that product. And then the restaurateur would start rolling it out, and then all of a sudden the hidden costs would start coming out, right? Oh yeah, we can do it, but it's going to cost you $1.2 million, which is just absolutely ridiculous, right? And those type of things, I mean, look, in the world we are today, we got to move fast. We've got to have integration works because technology comes fast and furious. Let's just, you know, get there. And I think a lot of what we're doing and building out this infrastructure is going to allow restaurateurs to take advantage of that.
Yeah.
Well, and I think it's really got an opportunity to unlock a lot of innovation in the restaurant space. If you think about a startup company being able to go in and opt into an API standard and know that they can go work with a restaurant company that's a part of this solution, that's part of that stack. If I'm a restaurant and I'm looking to drive innovation and it's part of who I am as a brand and it's part of what I want to be able to do, you know, I think I would look at what solutions are part of that open API to know that I can, if at any point, if they select an Appetize point of sale, and God forbid we somehow fall down, that they can pull another piece of open API and put it back in and continue their operations and drive their innovation. So it holds us responsible on a daily basis to make sure that we're continuing to deliver value to our clients and to the market.
So this isn't scary to any of you guys. All these tenets we've come up with, the 8 tenets in the open API framework, none of these things make you guys go, not sure, you know, how the brand's going to feel about some of these things. You guys are all in.
We're all in. We may have
Absolutely.
some competitors that chose not to show up today that are probably not, and that's okay. Chris, you mentioned that earlier before we got on camera, so I'm stealing your idea. I'm going to add to that. We talked briefly yesterday about data gravity, and I think that's what's really important here is as we start to collect more data, as we get more cohesive and all of this, there's technology, there's solutions that don't even exist today because of the problem we're in. And so as we all work together better, we collect more data, whether it's ordering from inside the store or outside the store, that is going to propel us into a whole different state. And I mean, I'm going to give a simple example of why I think this is important. And this came up for me personally last week. So direct integrations with third-party delivery, there's like a top 4. And I was unaware that some of those do not pull imagery from the platform, that you have to manage the imagery from their platform, as well as some of that's different depending on the size of the brand partner you are. If you have more stores on the platform, you get treated differently than if you have fewer stores on the platform. So again, I don't think it was malicious that these third-party delivery companies came in and built their consumption of data in a limited way. They probably just weren't aware that it was available to pull imagery from systems as well as menu data. Mm-hmm. And so there's an example where you have current integration partners that can enhance their integrations so that they'll all work the same way, as well as what Brian was just saying, was there's new technologies that are coming on board, smaller companies that want to jump in. They're eager. They got these great ideas and they've been stifled. And now they can come and do the self-service open API and sign up and look at a sandbox and test and play and build some really neat things.
Yeah, I mean, just look at Mertech. When we were there in March, those of us who could be there, Startup Alley, that was our first year to have it. And we had 15 amazing, new, innovative, scrappy, smart, entrepreneurial-minded people in this industry. And one of the questions that was on the judges' line item was, who are you integrated with?
How do you connect this?
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. A lot of them had to sort of say, well, we can do this and this, but they were inhibited. And Chris, I saw you shaking your head when Brian was talking about that.
Yeah, well, I think there's two, big categories of advantage we get out of this. Innovation is one, and Brian described that very well. And then I think the other end of it is just time to market and energy. Listen, anytime you sign up a decent sized brand, they're going to have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, let's call it on average 5 integrations. And even if you have 150 integrations on your platform, sure enough, 2 of those are not on your platform. And then, it's X number of months to work back and forth and reinvent the wheel again for the 90th loyalty program, on the planet. And it isn't behooving anybody. It's slow for the brand. It's expensive for the vendor. It's putting, just think about all the technical expertise and time. This would be a fun calculation to do. How many person years, decades, centuries have been spent redoing another loyalty API, just to serve yet another, customer / and sometimes you even find out with some of the bigger brands that company A has actually done, as an API that's their normal one, and then they've enhanced it, for this big brand. That if all that energy was going into building better product quality, moving stuff into the market faster to service the consumers, there would be more value, to our restaurant customers. And to me, that's so obvious. We're all wasting our time doing the same thing over and over.
Yeah.
To really nobody's benefit. So I think the small guys in the innovation, huge win. And then time to market and not wasting our time redoing the same thing over and over, huge for both, the vendors and the brands.
Right. And to that effect, I mean, you're putting your time and talent towards this initiative. Hopefully it will save you countless hours of time and time to market on the flip side. And you'll be able to go to any brand and be able to plug in your systems and your innovative solutions in creative new ways. And I mean, when I was talking to Duncan on my fire chat just earlier today, he said that. He said, not only is the open API great from a restaurant perspective, but it's also really plus for suppliers. I mean, it's just going to open up so many more opportunities, right? So it really is a win-win, truly.
Yeah, and when you look at what's in it for me, right, the WIFM test for vendors like us, it's really, at the end of the day, restaurateurs work on such small margins, right? If we can take spend away to let them be more productive, what are they going to do with that money? They're going to reinvest and open more locations.
That's right.
Right? Yep. And that's what's really at the end of the day, what drives us is to help them do that because we want to grow as well. And it's a great win-win for both organizations.
Great. So we think that if we play our cards right, this will be available in January to the industry at large. We're going to have a sort of a supplier readiness survey that we send out to all of the RTN members, so you guys can kind of see where you fall on the spectrum, totally anonymously, so that we can release that to the industry as well. As far as where are we with these 8 tenets that we've defined, which the industry will hear about soon. But the most important thing is like which companies are on board, and obviously you guys all are. So let's start with Robert and what's next as far as, I know that just yesterday we had an open API call and we talked about, you were talking about data and the different directions we might go. I mean, we're about to release a menu synchronization standard. So what's next, do you think, for that work group?
So the two that we talked about yesterday was the transactional data and the customer data. And I talked about changing the name really to personal data because from a stakeholder side, there's both employee and customer data that is personal data. I think that's important to have as the next standard. The transactional data is also a primary piece for that next step. We talked about payment data as well. Those are the 3 that we discussed. If I was to vote, I'd say it's got to be transactional first, maybe quickly aligned with customer and or employee data, and then more after that.
And what do you guys think? Anyone else want to comment on that, on the different directions for the different data models coming up for the Open API group?
Yeah, really excited about the next steps in those. And, we had a great, healthy discussion. And I know Robert was on the transactional side. I was on the customer side. One of my fears down the road is who owns the customer data, and are the restaurateurs going to get penalized when someone monetizes that? And then kind of what we've seen in a couple of different areas with like reservations and online ordering, when they don't own that data, that becomes a cost. And that's something I'm very cognitive of, is trying to reduce those costs. So, but we have great debates on it, and it'll be fun to see what the next steps are.
Yeah. Anything to add, Chris? What's around the corner for you guys?
They're all good. That's the hard part. Right? Like prioritizing child 1 over child 2. Who's your favorite?
Yeah. Chicken or egg syndrome, right?
Yeah. You could argue either. I mean, the transactional data is at the core of the system. As Bob said, the customer data and really all the data, somebody alluded to it earlier, one of the things that we'll have to mature with here is the legal circumstances around whose data is it, and can it be it's one thing to pass it to somebody. It's another thing to remonetize it in a different way. So all that's got to get worked through, but we'll get there. So transactional, though, is the heart of the system. And, the POS has been the keeper of record for a long time and always will be. And that platform is really important to have that platform. But the more people that can be tuned into that transaction, that spawns a lot of opportunities. But, the consumer data is super important as well. And there's other offshoots, inventory, et cetera. There's a lot of opportunity here. But one thing I like about what RTN has done is not got over your skis. Even though I'm old enough to have been involved, believe it or not, in some of the early like grocery standards, right? Even before we were scanning stuff. And a lot of those things took so long because they bit off so much at once. And I like that, let's get the menu working, move on to the next thing, get a thing working. And then I think there'll be a snowball effect, but it takes time, and it's going to take time for everybody to adjust their systems to do this, but it's still the right thing to do.
It is, and being that the open API framework is right around the corner is super exciting, because that's really the foundational element from which everything else will flow.
Yep.
Brian, how about you at Appetizer?
Well, yeah, I think you point to the API as a foundational element. I think what's interesting that RTN has done, and we have to have a big thank you, is that I think there's a lot of us in the industry that have said, this is something we really wish we could do. And you've brought us together and created this evolving, living, breathing committee or beast, really. It's really just this creature that is going to bring a lot of value to the marketplace, and it's something that's not static. I don't think we see it as static. You're hearing already talking about well, what's next? What's coming next? What's the next generation? What's the next thing? Because, you know, Chris is right. The POS is the center of that transaction. No matter where it's coming from, whether it's online, third party, loyalty, whatever, it all runs through that POS because it has to get back to the kitchen and get back to the home office. We have to be a key part of that. And we love being a key part of that and being able to be part of that open API that RTN has created. It creates an engine for us to be able to now interface with the rest of the world on an ongoing. So as those new technologies come in and innovate, we'll be able to, as a group, be able to evolve and adapt new standards to meet new challenges and new needs in the marketplace. So I think that that's the key part here, is that really bringing us together, getting us started, showing people that we're concerned about competition, that there's not competition, bringing together like-minded people. You know, it's great. And not to age him, but Chris actually and I worked together 20 years ago for the first time, and somehow he's looked exactly the same, and I look like I've worked with him for 60 years. But you know,
well, I do said it, Brian.
Yeah.
That is hilarious.
When we look at the evolution of where we've been, and Chris said the person years that we've wasted, that can come to a stop if the restaurants support these kinds of initiatives, and they work with vendors, and they push suppliers and vendors and partners to join us, because there are some people that are missing, and we need the industry to see this for the advantage that it will be for them and for their customers, because that's really what this is for. This has makes our life easier. If it makes our lives easier, we have more resources to go do new innovation and new strategies and new technologies which benefit. It is a circle that will get bigger and wider and greater as more and more opt in.
That's great. Well said. Well said. Let's have some last words, because I think we have to wrap up here soon. Robert, any last words or, you know, advice for folks that are listening, be it restaurants or suppliers? Like, what would you say to the industry about where we're going from here?
So just in this last round, something that came to mind is, you know, I would like all of us in the industry as solution providers to compete with the right tools and in the right ways. We're always going to be competition. We're coming together, though, to recognize that we have unfortunately been competing with the wrong tools and in the wrong way, because as you said, Chris, earlier, you get down to the end, and of the 100 integrations you have, there's one that you're missing, and that can be seen as a weakness, and it's not. It's just the state that we're in. So I would leave everyone and let our brand partners know that us coming together and tacking on what you said, Brian, it will allow us to do more and to provide more solutions and to stop the tedious. It's silly that we have to do all this stuff with different APIs. Let's stop that. Let's compete the right way with the right tools, and let's just make our industry. I said the term yesterday on LinkedIn, which is let's do a legacy leapfrog. Let's get way beyond. Let's catch up to retail. Let's catch up to grocery. Not just catch up, but let's get beyond them. And, you know, and I'll date myself going back far in grocery too. I've always known that a banana is 4011 as a PLU. and that's been like that way forever. And our industry should be the same way, where we can look back at this moment in time and say, hey, we have a standard, and it's awesome.
Great. Bob, last words for the group?
Yeah, I mean, we're in a paradigm shift, right? So what happens to a paradigm shift is you have to rethink of the way you do it, right? The horse and buggy to the Model T, and that's where we are today. And, you know, looking backwards isn't going to get us to where we need to be. Looking forwards will. And to me, that's the most important thing. What's the definition of sanity? Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result, right? That's where this new mindset has to kick in. And I encourage everyone to participate and bring your ideas to the table. And I think at the end of the day, you know, a year from now, we'll be 10 times better than we are today.
I can't wait to have this conversation a year from now and see where we are. Brian, last words from you?
Well, you know, first off, let me just say it if we haven't said it clearly enough. Thank you. You know, thank you to bringing us this group together and getting this group of like-minded individuals together so that we can kind of go bring all of our entities behind this. You know, all of us are leadership roles inside of our companies, but even inside of our companies, there were people that were saying, well, is differentiation or separation a competitive advantage, or I don't want to necessarily do this. And we've been able to bring more people out by showing that there's an industry alignment behind this. And hopefully we'll see more and more restaurateurs joining this operation as well and driving it forward. Because I think that that's really where the value will come in as we get more support in the marketplace.
Yep, absolutely. Well said. And last words from you, Chris.
Sure. And I'm just gonna pound that, you know, spike further into the ground, you know, in terms of what Brian just said. I think it's undeniable. I think COVID has actually shown us we need technology more than ever. This tsunami of what consumers want to do and how they want to engage, it only speeds up. It's never slowed down in history. And COVID just gave us a little supercharged period. But to be a successful, you know, restaurateur, retailer going forward, technology is going to be key. And guess what? I want to put a little pressure on the brands. If only a third or a half of the industry tries to do this and it falls apart, and because half the vendors block it, we will continue to be an inefficient industry delivering technology to you. So brands, you have to insist from your vendors that they do this, because it's going to be good for the amount of technology you get, the amount of money you have to pay for that technology, the amount of innovation that's available. And ultimately, the vendors who are like-minded don't fully have the final vote. It's the brands who have to decide this is a must-have, not a nice-to-have. So we need you to carry that torch to make this happen.
And
Here, speak with their wallets.
Yeah, and I can tell you from my experience, you know, some very powerful brands on our board of governors feel that way. They feel like they're going to be, you know, this is going to be a line item on the RFP. You know, and if you know this isn't on your roadmap, or you're not halfway there, or meet a minimum standard requirement for open API framework according to the RTN and what the industry has moved forward, then you certainly are not going to be considered. So I think that I have heard it echo from many big voices. So I do think it is a wave, a growing tidal wave of consent and endorsement from the restaurants themselves. And Chris, your message is heard loud and clear, and I think they're already on board. I think in practice it might be easier said than done. But you know, hey, you know, time will tell. And I think as we march forward and create this open API framework together, and they start seeing the benefits of it, I think once we have some case studies out there where there's some clear cut real world benefits of what's going on here, the choice will be clear. So thank you all so much for taking time out to join me today. Thank you again, just for diving in with us, right? For working, rolling up your sleeves and dedicating the blood, sweat, and tears to get this thing done over the last year plus, and also just being parts of the RTN and supporting the industry in the way that you have. All of these folks that you see here have booths here at the virtual event, so go visit them and reach out to them anytime. I think you have chat functionality in your booth, and if you guys want to talk to any of these guys, they'll be available. So thank you all for joining us, and you guys have a wonderful day and enjoy the rest of the event.
Thanks, Angela. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, guys.